Hey everybody, this is Evan Rogers. We are continuing on with our NHK Coronavirus Extravaganza. And the reason why we're doing this is because with the same vocab appearing in almost every single one of these articles, we'll learn a lot of vocabulary, but we can focus on the grammar a lot more as well. And we'll learn some vocab and see how the vocab mishmashes together. Remember, there's a Quizlet deck that it should be linked below. And I'll just mention this one time. Become a Patreon or a Subscribe Star donor, $1 a month. That's 3 cents a day. And you get some bonus material as well off of the stuff. So with that being said, let's continue on with our exciting journey of the coronavirus. I hope you don't mind. I did a little bit of reading ahead so I can make sure I got this translation right. It kind of goes straight into what to do from the handbook. We are on the article... they have come out with a handbook on what to do if your family gets sick with the new coronavirus. This is from the 26th of February 2020. There should be, if I didn't forget, a link to the PDF that you can download or print or whatever you want to do with it in the video description. Before we go on, I want everyone to know that one, the WHO, the World Health Organization, is horribly corrupt. It's basically owned by China. Do not use them as a source for information unless you really, for whatever reason, need to use them. Because they're lying for China, and everyone knows this. Go check out China Uncensored's videos on YouTube. They've all been defunded because YouTube. We won't get into that right now. But second off is that you can be sick upwards of, what I've heard from many sources is upwards of 24 days, apparently. Now, obviously, I don't know for sure. I'm not a doctor, blah, blah, blah. But from numerous sources reporting, you can be sick for up to 24 days and not actually show any symptoms of being sick. And you can get people sick that entire time. This disease is obviously horrible. And I have my suspicions as to its origin. At this point, me personally, I'm considering this the China's Chernobyl. Unfortunately, everyone else in the world's going to suffer to a great degree. Okay, so anyway, let's get started. You don't need my political commentary. ハンドブックには体の具合が悪い家族がいたらどうするか書いてあります。Alright, so we have 書いてあります has been written. This looks like a passive, but really what it means is just there's a transitive verb and then there's aru, and it translates to the verb has been done. It is finished. It is done. It has been done. So something has been written. Okay? Notice how it almost literally means that if we just break it down, arimasu, there is, and then kaite. Having written, there is. Notice how similar, I want to point this out, notice how similar this is to kaite iru, kaite imasu, which would be I am currently writing, or in some situations has been written, and how similar that is, and the translation overlaps. And notice how similar imas and arimas are. So, a little bit of a vague spot here. Kaite arimasu, whenever you have and this is important, the only verbs that can go into this te arimas pattern are those that actually have a true operand, a thing that you can actually operate on. Like you eat a pizza and you write a book. Notice how the word go uses an o particle, michi o iku, you go the road. And even in English, we'll say something like over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house I go through the woods. We have to use a, what are they called in English? A preposition, the word through the woods or down the street. In Japanese, they chose to do that with an O particle. That is a quote-unquote, it's almost like a fake O particle. Go is actually an intransitive verb. And, because there's no operand, and in a pattern like this, you can't use go. You can't use ikimasu. Itte arimasu is not a thing you can say. All verbs of movement actually follow this pattern. I'm talking too much about this pattern, but you should know. Alright, so, kaite arimasu. Okay, so something has been written. What has been written? First off, let's jump to the front. Handbook ni wa this ni particle is telling us where the writing happens. The ni particle in a verb in a verb with kaku is telling us into what we wrote down. So I wrote my notes in a book. I wrote my notes in the notebook. So in the notebook, or sorry, in the handbook, excuse me, it has been written. Okay? So what has been written is all in here. You would expect an O particle here. However, it's a clause that ends in a question. When you have a clause that ends in a question, we usually delete whatever particle might normally go there. Usually it's an O particle. Not always, but very frequently. Okay, so this ka, because it's a question, it's replacing the O particle. You're going to find yourself screwing up and adding an O particle anyway, or maybe even a to here. This even replaces the to in quotations. So be aware that if you are quoting a question, the ka particle kills the to. Okay, so 体の具合が悪い家族がいたらどうするか? Same question we've seen. So どうするか? What should you do? What? I mean, yeah, what should you do? I mean, that's a fine translation. Notice they do not have the subjunctive should idea. So we have to imply that. がいたら, so if you're again, this meant if there is a family. We've seen this in the previous video, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this. The only difference is 体の具合が悪い家族. So 具合が悪い is what we saw earlier, but here they're saying 体の具合が悪い. So this is your body doesn't feel healthy. So if your family, or less likely if a family, if there is a family, if your family is feeling sick, is feeling your body's not feeling well, どうするか? What should you do? Handbook ni kaite arimasu. So what should you do if your family is not feeling well, I guess bodily, physically? What you should do has been written in a handbook. Okay, and then this took me for a loop when I was briefly reading it. They just jump right into what it says. Okay, they don't give you like, here is what's written in the handbook. It just, boom, here you go. Okay, so 世話をする人は一人だけにします. Okay, so this after a noun or something like this, にする is to make a decision, to decide. So 一人だけにする. Choose one person, decide upon one person. We could even say the idea make one person. And notice how we're replacing the idea of this wall particle is an interesting function of the wall particle. This is kind of like the topic. So you are making one person. So that's almost the object of the sentence. You are making one person. But what are we describing this person as? This is a 世話をする人. 世話をする is to give care, is to take care of people, and it's modifying hito. So we could translate 世話をする人 as just one noun, a caregiver. は一人だけにします. So as for caregivers, if we're talking about caregivers, just choose one person. Just choose one person, just make it one person, decide upon one person. Any of those translations will work. As for caregivers, make it one person. Choose one person. Decide upon one person. Okay? So just again, verb going into noun. That's a wa topic particle. This is very much not a subject. Hitori dake ni shimasu. Choose one person. The subject in this sense is not mentioned because the subject is whoever is deciding, and that is you. Notice how this isn't even like a command. They chose to even leave off any sort of command feeling to the sentence, which is, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it's a little bit confusing. Because this threw me for a loop because it's just like, in the handbook, it is written what's in the handbook about what to do if your family's not feeling well. You will choose one person. And it's like, I will? Who? What? Who's the subject? Who's choosing? So this threw me for a loop. It'll probably throw you for a loop unless you're just way better than me, which why are you watching my stuff if you're better than me? So just be aware that for some reason, even though this doesn't have any sort of you should do this feeling to it, it apparently has that feeling in it. Or because it's the NHK easy news, maybe they just left that out. Okay, anyway. So if we're talking about when you're taking care of somebody, notice how, again, we're implying the subject is you are taking care of somebody. Toki means when. We're modifying it with se osuru. We've seen this a million times. So when taking care of somebody, that's the wa particle. That pause right there is the wa particle. When taking care of somebody, wa particle. Tebukuro ya masuku o shimasu. Okay, so notice shimasu here is the verb for not doing, not playing. This is the verb for wearing a mask or glove. In Japanese, they have like 9 wearing verbs, and it's, in my opinion, just frankly idiotic. But you can ask Japanese people sometime, like, what about this, what about this? And even adults will have trouble answering sometimes. Or they're just being really polite to me, and it happens all the time when I ask people. One of the two. Anyway, oshimasu. So this o particle for suru does not mean play your mask or do your mask. It means put on your mask. So mask ya tebukuro. So notice the ya particle, in case you didn't know this, it's like the to particle. Tebukuro means gloves. Mask is obviously mask. So the ya particle is when we're making the idea of and we don't want to make a complete list. So this means and things like. So tebukuro and things like mask. So wear things like masks and gloves. The next sentence, ichinichi ni, in one day, or throughout the day, or within one day, nankai mo. Okay, so we have a counter, a number, nankai. It doesn't look like a number because it's the kanji for what, nani. But remember, if you're ever asking like nan-nin, how many people are there? Like hitori, futari, san-nin, yon-nin, go-nin, and you want to know how many, you'll just put nan followed by the counter. So nankai is how many times. But if you use a question like that with a counter and you add mo, it translates to numerous, many times. So here would be many times. Nan-nin mo, many, many people. There's so many people, so many times. So ichinichi ni, within one day, nankai mo, many times, te o araimasu. Te, hand, and then that's the object. Araimasu is to wash. Wash your hands many times in a day. This is just a good habit anytime you're trying not to get sick. But once again, if somebody in your family is showing symptoms of this disease, likely everyone in the family has already gotten the disease, unfortunately. Uirusu ga utsute inai ka douka shiru tame. We got one of our tames. Hopefully you might already be able to put these sentences together after all these NHK articles. Se wo osuru hito mo ichinichi ni 2回熱をチェックします. All right. Let's check out the condition in order to do something. Okay, so in order to do what? Kadoka shiru tame. Okay, so shiru is to know. So in order to know, we have a kadoka. So whatever comes before this, it's whether or not. So in order to know whether or not utsutenai. Whether or not, notice they use the negative. That's very nice of them. Whether or not wirusu ga utsute inai. So whether or not wirusu ga utsute inai, in order to know whether or not wirusu ga utsute inai, wirusu is the virus and utsuru, utsute inai. Utsuru is, it spreads from person to person. Utsute iru would be, in this case, it would be it has spread. And they're being kind of optimistic in their language here by saying, in order to know whether or not whether it has not spread. I guess we could translate it that way. So notice utsutenai is has not spread. And we're saying whether it has not spread. In order to know whether it has not spread. Notice it didn't say in order to check whether it has spread, which would be scary. They chose whether it has not spread. So anyway, in order to check whether it has or has not spread, se wo osuru hito, the caregiver, we saw that earlier in this same paragraph, mo, that person as well. So you need to check yourself as well. Mo, ichinichi ni, in one day, again, we have the ichinichi ni 2回, twice, netsu o chekushimasu. Notice we're using the word check, even though I'm sure there's a better, more native Japanese word that they could have been using. So check twice. Check a fever. Netsu is fever. So check your temperature, your fever, twice in a day. So the caregiver should also check whether or not they have a fever. So I want to talk about this Mo particle. At first, you want to consider this as like they should also do the checking. But that would be if it replaces the subject particle ga or a wa. I want to argue this Mo is replacing the O particle. And so the sentence is kind of weird in that it's the caregiver should check the caregiver. So, osewa o suru hito mo. You should check them as well. 1日に2回熱をチェックします。That makes more sense than saying the caregiver as well should check something twice for the fever. Even though the mo particle can replace the o or the ga, here it's almost certainly replacing the ga, the subject particle. So this sentence almost certainly means in order to know whether or not the virus has spread, the caregiver should, and then sewa suru hito mo, check also the caregiver. The caregiver should check the caregiver twice a day for the fever. Okay? And that's what's happening there. Notice 1日に, usually this pattern uses a one counter followed by a ni, because usually we're dividing by one when you want to take once per day. But you occasionally get like the twice per week, but that would be ishukan. Very rarely do we say like, you should do it 3 times every 4 or something. It will happen, but not as often as when it's a 1. I hope this helped you. I hope this helps. If it does help, consider subscribing. Share this with everybody you know. The best thing you can do to help me out is give me some exposure. And not to the coronavirus. I'm hilarious. Have a great day. Peace out. And let's sing Vampirina.
We can sing Booty Vampirina.
You want to sing Booty Vampirina? What's that song? We're living the scream.
Whoa, Vampirina, I come and come zoo. Vampirina.
Maybe blue with pointy teeth.
Me blue is